tribe. Peace to the tribes. When we see the word Hindu, what comes to mind? Is it a religion? Is it an area, a geographical area specifically? Is it a type of people? Would it be the originators of the Caucasoid? When we see this term, Hindu, what comes to mind? Me? Outside of, the norm, they say that it's supposed to mean India, right? So it's another form of saying Indian, from the root word Indus, that being the river it's named after. But I've always seen Hindu as an invasion, in the sense that it's not portrayed in its original totality anymore. And when we're digging on Hindu Kush, the etymology is said to mean literally Indian killer. Hindu Kush. They say it's actually Indian killer. Hindu meaning Indian. We're going to touch on some things like we always do with these words, because if you've been tapping into the naturalist right here at 432thedrop.com in that ether, you would know you would know that your word is your powwow, your power, and that words contain power, and that your power should stem from your word. You want to put the most congruent intent into your word, into your expression. That way you are impeccable to mean what you say and to say what you mean. We just digging on the term Hindu right about now. Let's see what else we got. Shalom to the real ones. Glad to be back with y'all. Let's continue this journey. When we're talking about orientation, to know exactly where you are on the plane, your orient tends to have great meaning, right? I mean, if we're really in the East, that would make you the true Oriental. And we're just digging on the etymology. What happens to be what they refer to as the East, the part of the horizon where the sun first appears. Originally vaguely meaning the region east and south of Europe, what is now called the Middle East, but also sometimes Egypt and India. The rising sun, the east, part of the sky where the sun rises, originally rising, to rise. Sea origin. It also means a pearl of the first water. Originally meaning one from the Indian seas. Now that's pretty powerful in itself. The Indian seas, huh? Peace to all the American Indians out there. This is just another drop. Fresh from the kitchen, man. Straight off the stove. And this drop was brought to you by Hawaii and New York. So special AHOBs and special shout outs to Hawaii and New York, which happens to be the last two locations that went ahead and made some purchases from our website with these crystals. AHOB to that. Hawa, such a beautiful flow. And you guys really keep me alive out here. You guys really keep me charged up. You know what I'm saying? And fully animated. As a con should be. We're just talking about the place where the sun rises. And if the sun is rising in the Orient, would that indicate that the sun also shines where it rises? Can we also pull away a shining from this etymological breakdown? I would like to focus on the shining of the rising sun. Alright. Orient, to arrange so as to face east, to take one's bearings, literally to face the east. So if we're talking about Indians, we're talking about Khans. Now this term Hindu was said to be the name given by the Persians to a past where their Indian slaves had perished in winter. This is likely folk etymology. Whether it's a folk etymology or not, there's still a story attached to an invader holding the Indians oppressed. And as the American original, the Indian, you know way too much about being oppressed. But we're digging on the Orient, as in a pearl of the first waters. And we know the first waters came out the ether. And the first landmass to come out that water was America. Alright? They also said that the Orient is related to origin. Origin being ancestry, race, a rise. See this word? A rise, a commencement. Beginning, the source, the descent, the lineage, the birth. From arise, rise, to get up, appear above the horizon, become visible, be born, to be descended, to receive life, come forth, take origin, proceed, to start, to rise. To arise, lift, raise. To set in motion, move. To rise, meaning beginning of the existence. That from which something derives its being or nature. So with you being natural, what is your origin? Natural one. Would nature be your origin? And if so, Could we give the character of nature to a creator? I won't make that choice for you. I will allow you to make that choice for yourself. I'm just giving you something to think about as we build. Keep in mind, we're talking about the original, right? As in the original Oriental, the Indian. Peace and Ahab to the real ones. Again, this is brought to you by New York and Hawaii, man. Shalom. Shalom to them special ones. I hope you're getting this and you're a part of this build with us. Special Ahab to you. But this drop was inspired by those purchases. We're also digging on Austral or Austral, southern of or pertaining to the south. Australis, Oster, which is the south wind, south from Proto-Italic towards the dawn. All right, waking at dawn, tomorrow, dawn, morning, tomorrow. It also has Easter, but when you really get to it, it has to shine attached to it. To shine, just like how I was asking about the Orient, right? And the rising of the sun. Now, when you see this to shine, you should automatically be thinking of another word. Which word? We'll see if you can get it. You know what I'm saying? We've spoke on it plenty of times right here on this channel. Where we're talking about to shine. To shine, which also produces words for burning with reference to the hot, heat, south wind. So to shine, burn, hot, heat. What is this sounding like when you put those words together? Shiny, burning, heat. I mean, it is the name of this very presentation, is it not? We're talking about the ether. Oh yeah, you should definitely know by now we're talking about that ether, man. Which kind of strikes me with a revelation, because if we're also talking about Austral, which is the root word for Australians, and we're getting the meaning of shining, burning, hot, heat, just like another term, it goes to denote that the message being painted is that shines. We're digging on the Orient, the first ones to shine from the first waters, that which is near the rising sun. We're only talking about Indians as the Orient, Oriental. What other term can you think of that encompasses these three words? To shine, burning, and hot, heat. Alright. Os, meaning to shine, especially of the dawn. the Don. So is Australian another way of saying the land of the ether ones, of the Etherians? Because ether means to shine. I mean, it means to shine, right? We get it. Upper regions of space. The upper pure air, bright air. The sky, the firmament. The sky, as opposed to the lower air, meaning to burn, to shine, to burn. To shine. We're just talking about astral, right? Astral, to shine, orient. So as the Oriental, you are the Etherian, the original Indian. Alright, when we're digging on this term proto, it is a word forming element in compounds of the Greek language or Greek origin, meaning first, the source, the parent, the preceding, the earliest form, the original, the basics, the first. That's what we're building on right now. The proto, the first. You know, because we was building on episode 17 for the fifth wave of the naturalists over at 432thedrop.com, and I, highlighted the fact that I received a comment on my Instagram from someone claiming to be Native American, and they said there are no Aboriginals in America. There were never any Aboriginals in America. And so just by them saying that, that flame was lit, increased, and now we're raging. Amazing. Amazing how one can say there were no Aboriginals whatsoever in America when we're talking about the proto, when we're talking about the Orient, when we're talking about the astral, when we're talking about the ether, when we're talking about Indians. Shalom. Here we're digging on tawny, of yellowish dark color, like things tan or persons who are sunburnt, as a tawny Moor or Spaniard. Alright, the tawny sons of Numidia, the tawny lion. Now that was a great comparison. A lion as being tawny, right? Because you can kind of get a complexion based off that. So we're still talking about a dark color, right? Something being in contrast as far as pale goes. And when we're digging on tawny, which is a dark complexion, you have American, which was the first dictionary to print this word, right, as originally applied to the Aboriginals. But I thought America never had any Aboriginals. Why would that be said? Because they're referring to the copper-colored races? And when you look at Aboriginals, that comparison tends to be synonymous. Aboriginals and copper color. They go hand in hand. Meaning you can't really have a pale skinned Aboriginal. It doesn't make sense. That math is incomplete. You can't have pale copper colored people. That's a failed attempt. And these Americans were found here by the Europeans, but had their names stolen. And now it's applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. When we're digging on the Orient, as in the Oriental, it had a meaning for the region east and south of Europe, what is now called the Middle East, but also sometimes Egypt and India. We're just talking America. We're just talking American. Alright, so this guy was saying that there's no such thing as Aboriginals in America. But we're gonna go ahead and do a little digging, figure out what they mean. Because if we're talking sunburnt, then we're also talking ether. So if we're talking tani, then we're also talking Etherians. Because we know the ether is to burn, to shine. We know Ethiopian or the Ethiop is to burn, right? To have the burnt face, the sunburnt face. See? Sunburn. The fiery looking. So if we're talking tani, we're talking fiery looking, as in those who are sunburned. Following along? Are we all caught up? Are we all up to speed? We shall proceed on this ether bus. So we're digging on the Austronesian peoples. Alright. And the Austronesian peoples are a large group of peoples in Taiwan, Maritime, Southeast Asia, Micronesia, coastal New Guinea islands of Melanesia, Polynesia, Madagascar, that speak Austronesian language. They also include indigenous ethnic minorities in Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, Thailand, Hainan, and Comoros, and the Torres Strait Islands. They originated from a prehistoric sea-borne migration known as the Austronesian expansion from pre-Han Taiwan around 1500 to 1000 BCE. Alright, the Austronesians reached the northernmost Philippines, specifically the Batanes Islands, by around 2200 BCE. Now, depending on how you're categorizing Austronesian, I see more of what we refer to as the modern day politically correct, accepted face of the Asian. Alright. And this pre-Han Taiwan, this pre-Han is the Chinese. Alright. Now you can see, you know, in this example right here, the phenotype and how they look. So we're still talking about a people before these people, before what we know and what we accept the Chinese people to be today. It says, in conjunction with their use of other maritime technologies, notably the catamarans, out-trigger boats, lash lug boat building, and crab claw sail, this enabled their dispersal into the islands of the Indo-Pacific, culminating in the settlement of New Zealand from 1250 CE, or of 1250 CE. From 2000 BCE, they assimilated or were assimilated by the earlier Paleolithic, pre-Austronesian and Australo-Melanesian Papuan populations. They reached as far as Easter Island to the east, Madagascar to the west, and New Zealand to the south. At the furthest extent, they might have also reached the Americas. Alright, so this is where a lot of that gene pool is flowing from. This modern day phenotype of Asians as we know of it today. Not the protos, not the first, not the originals, but the newer version of such peoples. Alright. Now, even with this, it said that they were assimilated, meaning that even at this time, they had no choice but to mix in or be attached to or to leech on to the original populations, which were the pre-Austronesian. You see what's going on? Paleolithic pre-Austronesians. And the Australo-Melanesian Papuan populations. Alright. We know what the Papua New Guineans look like. We know what the Melanesians look like. And we know what the Australoids or the Australians look like. They all look like those of the copper color races, or tawny, dark hues in the complexion, dark color, making them the Aboriginals. And since this Austronesian frequency may have potentially reached America, or the Americas according to this Wikipedia site, one goes to wonder, are we talking about the same invasion? Because as we see, they had to assimilate into the earlier populations. earlier populations. All right. So we're going to continue to dig and build. Let's see what we got. Okay, so this Johann Friedrich Blumenbach added that Austronesians as the fifth category to his varieties of humans in the second edition of De Generis Humani Varietate Natavia. He initially grouped them by geography and thus called Austronesians the people from the southern world. In the third edition, published in 1795, he named Austronesians the Malay race or the brown race after correspondence with Joseph Banks, who was part of the first voyage of James Cook. Blumenbach used the term Malay due to his belief that most Austronesians spoke the Malay idiom, though he inadvertently caused the later confusion of his racial category with the Malay ethnic group. The other varieties Blumenbach identified were the Caucasians, what they refer to as white, the Mongolians that are referred to as yellow, and the Ethiopians as black, and the Americans as red. Blumenbach's definition of the Malay race is largely identical to the modern distribution of Austronesian peoples, including not only islander Southeast Asians, but also the people of Madagascar and the Pacific Islands. Although Blumenbach's work was later used in scientific racism, Blumenbach was a genus and did not believe the human varieties were inherently inferior to each other. The Malay variety being tawny colored, hair black, soft, curly, thick, and plentiful. Head moderately narrowed, forehead slightly swollen, nose full, rather wide as it were diffused, end thick, mouth large, upper jaw somewhat prominent, with parts of the face when seen in profile sufficiently prominent and distinct from each other. And there's that word, right? Tawny. When we're digging on tawny, we're talking about a yellowish dark color, like things tanned or persons who are sunburned, as in a tawny moor. Alright, so we're talking about a complexion, a dark complexion at that. A dark complexion at that. Says by the 19th century, however, scientific racism was favoring a classification of Austronesians as being a subset of the Mongolian race as well as polygenism. Alright, the Australo-Melanesian populations of Southeast Asia and Melanesia, whom Blumenbach initially classified as a sub-race of the Malay race, were also now being treated as a separate Ethiopian race by authors like George Cuvier, Conrad Montalbrun, who first coined the term Oceania as Oceanique. Alright. It says British naturalist James Cowles Pritchard originally followed Blumenbach by treating Papuans and native Australians as being descendants of the same stock as Austronesians. But by his third edition of researches into the physical history of man, his work had become more racialized due to the influence of polygenism. He classified the peoples of Austronesia into two groups, the Malayo-Polynesians, roughly equivalent to the Austronesian peoples, and the Calais-Melanesians, roughly equivalent to the Australo-Melanesians. He further subdivided the latter into the Alforos, also Herephoras or Alforos, the native Australians, and the Pelagian or Oceanic Negroes, the Melanesian and Western Polynesians. Despite this, he acknowledged that the Malayo-Polynesians and the Pelagian Negroes have remarkable characteristics in common, particularly in terms of language and craniometry. Craniometry. Alright. So basically, these original Austronesians was just as dark as everyone else, which was a problem because they were trying to figure out where these Austronesians separated, when really they shouldn't even have the term Austronesians, because they assimilated into an earlier population that had basically nothing to do with them. But as you know, they need to be grafted into the table of nations in order to have a seat, a place to sit. But when we're really digging on Tani, we're really talking about people who are sunburnt or burnt by the sun, as they would say, or really that shine. We're really talking about the Etherians, which is why they were also classified as Ethiopians. Alright, so we were digging on this term Tani, and we're seeing how these, Austronesians, which are the ancestors of the modern Asians we know of today. Alright, and you'll see how this all ties in just a minute. Alright. So when we're digging on Hindu, and the Hindu Kush being Indian killer, it made me think, well, if we're talking about aboriginals and complexion, just who were the first people of India? Who were the first people of India to be referred to as the Hindu? Right? Because we're talking about a region. We're talking about the river, the Indus River. So who were the first people to be known as Hindus? AKA Indians. And you have the Negritos of India. The Negritos, perhaps, they were the first of the racial groups that came to India. They got settled in the hilly areas of Kerala and the Andaman Islands. Kadar, Arula, and Pulian tribes of Kerala resemble to a great extent with the Negritos. They are related to Africa, Australia, and their neighboring islands. So they say. But if the Negrito is the first, then we're talking Aboriginal. And if we're talking Aboriginals, then we're talking Indians. And if the Negritos were the first of India, then we're talking the copper-colored races, which are the Aboriginals of America. Meaning, everywhere on the plain, the land, those who were first were of dark, copper-colored complexion. The Negritos of India were the first of the racial groups that came to India. They were the first. They were the first. According to Twitter, I guess the Asian community has hoteps the same way Egypt has hotep. And they're saying that the first so-called blacks aren't African, but are actually Asian. And that blacks come from Asia. This is what they believe amongst themselves. The first blacks were Asian. And now you can see why they would say something like that, because if that's the case, then they acknowledge even their own folklore, their own history. But the thing about being the original is that you come in many varieties. And not all carbon-rich people are the same. We'll carry on. Here we have this article. Keep in mind you have to dodge your own hijacks at all costs. Alright. Says, growing up in India, I never met or heard about Indians with African lineages. Then in 2005, I watched a dance performance by the City Goma, a group of musicians from the African Indian community. The city and I was astonished and mesmerized. Since then, I've discovered that India's African roots are much older than the cities and are not only evident in numerous other communities, but percolate through direct descent in the blood of at least 600 million Indians. But hold up, I thought there were no Aboriginal Indians. And now I really understand why they push the agenda of no Aboriginals in America. It says the cities who arrived in India over 1,000 years ago, between 700 and 900 AD, are perhaps the youngest African immigrant community here. All right. It says that they were brought on by ships of Arab merchants who sold them as slaves to Indian rulers. But keep in mind, the Negritos are the first Indians. So maybe it was some Austronesians of Persia who came with this infiltration, with this invasion. Okay, it says, known to be powerful warriors, the cities were often used as soldiers and played important roles in the armies and in political warfare. Let's see what else we got, right? The cities of the Sadais. Cities of Bombay. Amazing. As you can see, they look like Moors. Alright. Peace to all my real ones of the promise, to my people of the promise, to those of the faith. Peace and Ahab to you. We just want to speak peace. Shalom. King Shalom. AKA Solomon, man. We just talking peace. Alright. Let's check out these folk. These folk right here. You know what I'm saying? Because these folk look familiar. They look familiar, right? It says the roots go deeper. However, there are communities in India with African ancestry that arrived long before the cities. They were not brought as slaves, but migrated in large groups via land and sea. They are believed to be two such waves of immigration which are differentiated by time and distinctive facial features and genetic markers. The group that came from Eastern Africa via coastal route about 60,000 years ago, identified as Negritos, are generally shorter stature with very dark, smooth, hairless skin and short, frizzy hair. They formed communities that are now rapidly disappearing, like the Onga, the Jara, and the Great Andamanese in the India's Nicobar and Andaman Islands. 60,000 years ago, Dojo hijacks at all costs. We're talking Aboriginal Indians, the proto-Hindu. Keep in mind, Hindu is just another word for Indian according to the etymology. Alright. The other group of migrants known as the Proto-Australoids arrived later, about 50,000 years ago. They are racially distinct from the Negritos in that they have longer, wavy hair. They are also said to be the ancestors of the Australian Aborigines. Now let that sit in your mind, because we was digging on Proto. Proto meaning the earliest form, the original. So we're talking about the original Australians. The original Australoids. It says the original inhabitants of the land, they are India's indigenous people who formed the bedrock of the populations and civilizations that evolved here. Though they were largely forest and farming communities, they also evolved into urban societies. Now there goes that word again. And if you've been catching up on the Levitical cities, you know exactly what time this is. You're talking about copper colored races. You're talking about Niji Nagas, man. And they built towns and cities of remarkable sophistication as seen in the Indus Valley. DNA analysis of human remains and artifacts such as the female bronze figurine called the Dancing Girl from the Indus period confirmed the presence of Afroid and Proto-Australoid races. So the Negritos and these Proto-Australoids were in the land of India as the originals, making them Aboriginal Indians who had a complexion that shined and burned. There are also extensive references to and information about these early indigenous communities and cultures in the Vedas. Now I remember we was talking in the copper thread, and I made mention how the Vedas and those of the Hindu texts and sacred writings speak on how these so-called modern Hindus recorded the eradication of the indigenous originals. It's a part of their document history. They even have hymns or songs singing about the murder that took place of the originals. It says the sacred text of the Vedic people, a sub-Caucasoid group that immigrated into India between 3,000 and 4,000 years ago. Where did they come from? Where did they come from? This sub-Caucasoid group. I'm pretty sure they were the ones who believed they were the true Aryans. Where did they come from? They know that they immigrated, but where did they come from? The Vedics were warring, cattle-herding nomads and refer to the urban dwelling. See again, that term, urban. I mean, let's get it real quick. You know what I'm saying? Let's get it real quick. Let's not play around. Let's not play around. Let's get it real quick. Urban. In relating to or characteristic of a town or a city, denoting or relating to popular dance music associated with black performers. Alright, you see what's going on? Alright, you see what's going on? Urban. Like I said, if you've seen the Levitical cities, you know what time it is right about now. Now, these Vedics were a warring people. They warred a lot, just like so-called Europeans. In fact, they were a sub-Caucasoid group, which means that they were technically the ancestors of these Caucasoids. All right. And they refer to the urban dwellings of the indigenous people as Krishna Garbha, which is the womb of the black people, who they described as flat-nosed and bull-lipped. And you see what's going on right here. All right. You see what's going on right here. You see the complexion of this image, so you know what he's entailing in detail as we read this. They frequently attack the indigenous settlements with a desire to burn, crush, and bury their enemies, who they equated with the night, demons, and evil. The caste system imposed by the Vedics reflected their race and color prejudices and likely ensued in response to interbreeding through marriage or the R word. Wow, look, check this out. I was just speaking on it, but look at what it says. All right, this is what I was telling the copper thread. This is a hymn or a song. I wonder if we can get this in real time. I'm gonna copy it for right now. We're gonna see if we can get this in real time. But peep it, right? Is a clear reference to the R word and murder of the indigenous goddess Long Tongue or Kali by the Vedic gods Indra and Sumitra. The word caste Varna means color and plainly refers to the race-based color coding for the caste hierarchy in which whites were designated as Brahmins, the highest caste, browns called red in Sanskrit to the second highest caste or nobles and warriors, yellows or the oriental race, of which two there were indigenous tribes to the merchant caste, and blacks were designated to the lowest, or the slaves. So they have a song about the murder of the indigenous Cali, which is why you see him painting the face right here, because they're telling you what's going on, and they put it in song. Let's see if we can get this in real time. You know what I'm saying? Let's see if we can get this in real time. Oh man, I can't believe it. You know what I'm saying? I was telling the tribe that this is what they do. This is what they do. We're gonna have to maybe come back on that, or if someone doesn't mind picking up upon this hymn and posting further information in the chat as we continue to build. This is what they got going on, man, and it's kind of crazy, because as you can see, the Hindu Kush means Indian killer, and we're starting to get how these was killers of Indians, man. We picking it up live and direct right now. Shouts out to the real ones. We're just in the ether. All right. So when we're looking up 1828 Noah Webster's dictionary, he has Hindu, but it's spelled like this, right? And when you type it in the way it's spelled today, it didn't exist back then, but Hindu does. And what is Hindu? An aboriginal of Hindustan, or Hindustan. An aboriginal, man. Once again, an aboriginal. Very interesting, because it's the Negritos who were the first group of India, and we got it from here, that these proto, right, before Australoids, are India's indigenous peoples, who formed the bedrock of the populations and civilizations that evolved here. Amazing, right? So when we're digging on Hindu, we're still talking about Aboriginal. So maybe it was these Austronesians, aka Persians, who came over as killers of these Indians and imposed their Vedic beliefs that they now attribute to being the primary religion and culture of India today, which has history of massacring and R-wording to indigenous, with a desire to burn, crush, and bury their enemies, who they equated with the night. They knew exactly who these people were, just like how it is over here on the mainland. They know exactly who you are, my nigga. They know you come from that night, which is the personified ether. They know you come from the ether, so they burn you alive. They burn you alive because they know that's who you are. They know it's your name. frequently attacked the indigenous settlements with a desire to burn. See what's going on? Where was that ether? Sunburnt, to burn. Alright? They set you on fire, knowing that you come from the fire. So a Hindu, D-O-O, is an aboriginal of Hindustan. So why when I look it up in etymology, it's giving me all this nonsense about India and Aryans and the such, when we're really talking about Aboriginal Indians and the Negritos being the first. See, when we get Aboriginal, it says see origin, as we already dug on, you get the first original, the primitive. Aboriginal people are the first inhabitants of a country. Aboriginal tribes of America, an original or primitive inhabitant. The first settlers in the country are called Aboriginals, as the Celts in Europe and Indians in America. But I thought there were no Aboriginals in America. Because when we start talking about Aboriginals of America, we get descriptions like yellowish dark color or the copper colored races. And that tends to give a hijack a headache, right? A run for his money, because as the modern Austronesian, they no longer fit into the description of the culture they are invading and imposing. Calm. We're gonna carry on. Peace, peace. Here we have this article, right? The Morakush Society. 3 principal tribes of Ethiopians, the Hesperi, Garamantes, and Indians. Alright, it says the Morakush Society Incorporation is a historical society dedicated to the preservation, and perpetuation, whatever that would be right now, my pronunciation is slightly off, of the Moorish heritage, history, legacy, and culture. It says that they are the guardians of Moorish knowledge and wisdom, and their goal is to establish a Moorish museum of history and culture. Alright, fresh off top, you see what we see, so you know what this drop is about, right? It says Dana Reynolds Marnich article published an article titled Afro-Asian Dispersals, how scholarship has come around to the truth and the roots of Semitic speech and culture, which provides the following commentary. The name Berber was thus known not only in Africa but throughout the Orient as a name that applied to certain populations of Africans of the Horn, Sudan, and the Sahel from an ancient period. It is also a fact that Berbers and other Africans, in fact stretching to the Atlantic in the ancient world, were often indiscriminately referred to as Indi Arabians, Ethiopians, and thus, according to the Isidore in the 9th book, there are 3 principal tribes of Ethiopians: the Hesperi, Garamantes, and Indi. Alright, shout out to the Khan Fresh. He was trying to put several folks on game about what we're digging on right now. Alright. It says, in consideration of the Greek and Roman acquaintance with the Negroid type as revealed by the literary evidence, and in view of the use of the word Ethiopian, it is reasonable to assume that a given passage refers to a Negroid type in the following instances. Whenever a consideration of the evidence indicates that Afer, Indus, or Morris is the equivalent of Ethiops. Alright, and here is wow, this right here seems like the tribes of these folks that we're talking about. I mean, look at this. You cannot make this up, right? And this kind of makes me think about the 2 Ethiopias, the 3 Ethiopias, the 3 Indias, all that, because of what was going down. I mean, these were genetically engineered tribes right here, without a shadow of a doubt. Alright, it says black in the study titled Black Lives in the English Archives of the 1500 through 1677 is thus: Negro, Ethiopian, Egyptian, Moor / Blackamoor, Barbary, Barbarian, and Indian. Alright. The study uses of the word also includes geographic names by themselves, such as Guyana or Guinea, where the early modern English, they function openly or implicitly as regional identifiers of people of color. Alright. Anthony Gerald Bartholomew in Blackface, Maligned Race of pages 1 through 17, Michael Neal in Mulattoes, Blacks, and Indian Moors, and Margot Hendricks in Surveying Race, all offer useful demonstrations of the propriety of adhering to a taxonomic license in tracing 16th and 17th century English constructions of colored people. At the same time, hidden in the vast archives of parish churches within London and without all through the Tudor and Stuart reigns are voluminous cryptic citations of Negro, Nagar, and Nagar, Blackamoor, Moor, Barbary, Barbarian, Ethiopian, and Indian, all meaning the same thing. All meaning the same thing. Right? We're talking carbon-rich people, melanin-rich people. The discussions of the records are organized in 5 chapters dealing with records of black people in early 16th century Britain and Elizabethan London and 17th century London and elsewhere in England, with the last 2 chapters examining records of black people in the English provinces and East Indians and other people of color in London and in the countryside. Alright, and if we can get this map, dig on it. Alright, look at that. I'm talking America. Alright. And this is looking like the southern land that they're referring to as Antarctica, right? It looks like it was called the southern land. And this is what we was getting in the drop, the last drop. It says, but now Poseidon had gone to visit the Ethiopians worlds away. Ethiopians off at the farthest limits of mankind, a people split in two. One part where the sun god sets and part where the sun god rises. So, I mean, we're talking to the Americas right then and there, which is why you see this picture with them in the Americas, right? It says the etymology of Ethiopia being the Negro, which is to burn, later sunburn, the fiery looking. But we're really talking about the ether. No one wants to talk about that. The poet elsewhere speaks of two divisions of them, one dwelling near the rising, the other near the setting of the sun, both having embrowned visages, which is brown faces from their proximity to that luminary, and both leading a blissful existence because living amid a flood of light as a natural concomitant of a blissful existence, blameless and pure and free from every kind of moral defilement. They knew you were pure, so they had to come and dirty you up. All right. I mean, it goes on and on. The color of the Indians of the California mission seen by La Perouse very nearly approaches that of the Negroes, whose hair is not woolly, and in another place, the color of these Indians, which is that of Negroes. Alright. Langsdorff, who visited San Francisco on the coast of California, confirms that the observation of Le Perouse, for he says the Indians there are of a very dark complexion approaching to black. They have large projecting lips and broad, flat, Negro-like noses. Indeed, many of their features, as well as their physiognomy, and almost their color bear a strong resemblance to the Negroes. Their hair, however, is long and straight. So tons of accounts with these Indians having dark, rich melanin, carbon-rich elements to their complexion. All right, here is a portrait of a man from Stanislaus County in California. Alright, and they're making more connections about how all of these names mean the same thing. Alright, that they mean the same thing. And you see how they're spelling Atheios. Morris was synonymous with Moor, Negro, and Atheios. Alright, so we're talking about Aboriginals. Alright, it says in 1878 his attention as directed to its former presence at the Belvedere Museum by a notice in Baron von Sacken's descriptive catalog of the Imperial Ambris collection printed in Vienna in 1855, wherein among rare objects from various parts of the world, it is mentioned as follows. Number 3, a Mexican headdress about 3 feet in height, composed of magnificent green feathers studded with small plates of gold. This specimen was termed in the inventory of 1596 a Moorish hat. Alright. Guided by this note, von Hochstetter, with the assistance of Dr. Ig, the custodian of the Ambras collection, found the precious relic and rescued it from an obscure corner of a showcase where it hung folded together next to a medieval bishop's mitra and surrounded by sundry curiosities from North America, China, and Sunda Islands. On folio 472 of the ancient document, it is cataloged with other objects and feather work contained in the chest number 9 and is described as a Moorish hat of beautiful, long, lustrous green and gold hued feathers, bedecked above with white, red, and blue feathers and gold rosettes and ornaments. In front on the forehead, it has a beak of pure gold. The term Moorish, as here applied, can scarcely be regarded as a deceptive one, inasmuch as Montezuma, the king of Tenochtitlan and Mexico, is subsequently designated as a Moorish king in this same inventory of 1596. It is interesting to note that the gradual changes that occur in the wording of the subsequent periodical official registrations of this Moorish hat. In 1613, its description was faithfully reproduced. In 1621, the word Indian was substituted for Moorish. With this single alteration, the original text was transcribed in 1730. In 1788, however, a remarkable transformation was effected. The hat became an apron, and the official records reads an Indian apron of long green feathers. It is garnished above with a narrow band of white feathers, followed by a broad one of green. Then there is a narrow stripe of red and a broad one of blue. The bands are studded with crescents and horseshoes, small circular plates, and other than gold pieces. Alright, so they say that they knew who these people were. Alright, and as you can see right here in context, thus also certain peoples of Nubia and Abyssinia were at times known as Indians, man. Meanwhile, Abyssinia was referred to as Third India. Which is why the Khan is always saying that America is India superior. If they call it Indian minor, we had to be India superior, which means we getting closer to the Preston. Alright, and just digging on this article, man, I mean, when we dodging hijacks at all costs, we're connecting that indigenous drop. Right, we're connecting that indigenous drop to these folks right about here. Alright, and we're saying how these are the people of the ethers. Because it's all the same term. It's all the same term. Alright, and this was brought to you by Hawaii and New York. Alright, so we're digging on Indians. Now check this out. Alright, because now we start getting into why they don't want to mess with these pics right here. Because it's proving the Shemitic origin to such people. And these belong to the Aboriginals, man. So they gotta throw away and get rid of the Aboriginal, just like how Einstein and the Nazis got rid of the ether. The real estate agents, as my cousin would call them. The small hats. Alright. I mean, check it out. All of these artifacts being found in North America, denoting the origin, and how it's a Shemitic origin. Alright. They're finding connections all over the place. They don't want you comparing it. Which is why, you know, this so-called Native American told me there's no such thing as an Aboriginal in America. Alright, you see why. You see why he has to put this into play, because look at all the evidence that's stacked, right? Once the indigenous Niji Naga gets a hold of this, you undoing all the spells, man. Carrying on. Because now that you know we're talking about the Etherians, now that you know we're talking about those directly from the ether, we're talking about those who were kissed by the sun, that are meant to shine, just as in the Orient, right, where the place of the rising sun exists. Here we have the Etherians living in another plane, had spaceships, they flew along magnetic lines of force into Earth's atmosphere. These appeared as flashing fireballs and were called flying saucers. Now, take a look at how these so-called Etherians are being depicted. You can't make this up, boss. It's the fifth wave, man. You can't make this up. You can't make this up, Shabbatai. It's the fifth wave. You can't make this up. It says that they appeared as flashing fireballs, man, and were called flying saucers. This is what I be trying to tell y'all. You thinking you seeing something in the sky. If it ain't connecting back to the Etherians, to these ethers, it ain't what you think it is, player. Don't get caught up in the deception, man, because the natural one is trying to let you know. Etherian, what the Greek, Roman god divinities and demigods may have called their culture before Greece and the Hellenics existed. You see what's going on? Olympian, Eridanus star seeds, divine spirits from the ether, the upper air, the cosmos. Before Greece or Hellenics existed, the Greek, Roman gods as well as star-child demigods lounged among the stars in the cosmos and boasted, doesn't every civilization in the universe know that we Etherians are the most ethereal? It kind of sounds something like Nagas would say, man. You know what I'm saying? Which is why they say, oh art, how the mighty have fallen. You know what I mean? Like They done brought you to an ultimate low, my nigga. To an ultimate low. Alright? And before it was called the Atlantic Ocean, it was called Ethiopian Sea, or the Ethiopian Ocean. Map makers once referred to the southern Atlantic Ocean as the Ethiopian Ocean, or the Ocean of Ether. Alright. It includes what looks like a part of an old map showing the western coastline of Africa, the ocean labeled Ethiopian. You see the Aether, right? Ethiopian Ocean. Can't make this up. Can't make this up. So before it was called the Atlantic, it was called the Ethiopian. Right? And it's crazy. You know, we're gonna have to really dig into this because these monsters keep popping up. You know, and I'm really starting to believe it was these other Ethiopians that sent these beasts upon us, man. The other ones. You know what I'm saying? Because look at what's cracking. Look at what we seeing. Right? Look at what we seeing. And they say that it's between the southwestern coast of Africa and Brazil, which is what the map was showing, right? This ain't the one though. It was in this joint. Where's that? Too far down. We need to, here we go. Right here. Look. Here we have Brazil, Ocean, Ethiopiacus. Alright, the Ethiop, the Negro. So this was the ocean of the ether, man. In between so-called Africa and Brazil. You see what's going on? Ethiopic Ocean. Ocean of the ether. Digging on it? Ethiopian Sea. It says etheric conditioning required for traveling in an ET spacecraft. It is true that a few human beings have entered this and other aeroforms and have taken short rides in them. No Etherian has traveled in aeroform to distances beyond the gravitational and magnetic field of the Earth. No Etherian has visited the Moon, Mars, Venus, or any other planet while in his normal physical body. No Etherian can make an interplanetary or true space flight in aeroform while in his normal physical body. Such a flight would be possible provided his body was reconditioned prior to entering the aeroform, but further, this reconditioning would consist in a time-measured dosage of high frequencies produced by small electronic devices and true space flight, even if achieved by a human under the protection and mention, would result in amnesia and serious physical disorders. An aeroform at rest is enveloped by a field of supersonic frequencies, and an aeroform in flight gives off a field of ultrasonic frequencies. Ultrasonic rates actually convert the aeroform and the bodies of all persons inside of them to waves of light. Etherian beings in this condition retain full consciousness and full control of their ship, but no normal human can survive this conversion unless previously conditioned by time-measured doses of high frequencies. The subject conditioned would not necessarily be aware of what was being done. Ultrasonic frequencies loosen the cell structure but do not disintegrate the cells. Traveling as a light wave, the Etherian is able to control his light wave craft by mental energies and by use of ultrasonic frequencies. The speed of light in free space is without limit. In occupied space, planets and other bodies, light is affected by gravitational pressures. In free space, therefore, transition is instantaneous. A change of frequency is equivalent to a change of position or location. Ultrasonic frequencies produced by electronic devices can act as a gravity screen shield. A resting disk can cut off the gravity screen shield. A resting disk can cut off the gravity pressure from any angle and will then be thrown off into space by gravity itself, or when the material of which the craft appears to be made has its vibratory rate raised to ultrasonic frequencies, it becomes invisible and intangible ipso facto. When converted as in 11, the craft may remain in situ, translucent, transparent, and invisible, tangible or intangible, or it may depart without being perceived. Conversion to ultrasonic frequencies affects all parts of the body at the same instant, and the Etherians experience no ill effects. They can travel as conscious living light waves or in bodies resembling our own at another frequency. From this point of view, 13, it is possible to describe the aeroforms as the living bodies of etheric entities, as has been done. The ship and its crew alike become light waves or frequencies of the ether, while consciousness continues to abide in the entities, and who also may be unaware or are aware of the physical changes in themselves. And it's like I've been saying, man, you don't get a physical metal craft in the ether, and it's not that. It's not that. Alright? I'm pretty sure there's a man in that craft, and that nigga's playing games, man. He's playing games with you. Because as you can see, this is not something materialistic. This is pure energy. But before we ride out, we're gonna go ahead and get a quick look. Peace. See, as you see, we're just looking at a tetrahedron. Alright? And like the comment mentioned earlier, all of this points strictly back to the ether, man. And we're talking about the so-called star seed of Dawid, man. The star seeds of Dawid. You know what I'm saying? Peep how each color and each point resonates to a certain specific part of the body. These are your light vehicles. These are your so-called spaceships that can only be tapped into when the energy is transmitted correctly. Chakra balancing, you see the tree of life, which is also the body of man. You see how it says that you're going to need crystals to activate your light vehicle. You will need 1 grounding crystal, 1 energizing crystal, 2 stabilizing crystals, 1 heart or cleansing crystal such as chlorite quartz, 2 blue lace agate, 2 amethyst, 1 clear quartz or selenite. All of which we have available on the site, by the way. Shouts out to Hawaii and New York for their most recent purchase, man. We about to get the shipping going right about now. It says to lay the grid, hold the crystals in your hands and state your intention for the grid. Lie down to ensure you have sufficient space. Place a grounding crystal below the feet. Sitting up to do so, place an energizing crystal over the base chakra. Place stabilizing crystals on either sides of the hip. Place a heart or cleansing crystal over the heart or solar plexus, or green aventurine will work for both. Place blue lace agate on either side of the shoulders. Place amethyst on either side of the ears. Place clear quartz or selenite over the crown. Lie still for 10 or 15 minutes, breathing gently. Remove the crystals in the reverse order in which they were laid, then cleanse them according to the instructions on page 39. Alright. I mean, we're not playing when we're entering the supernaturals. Alright. Merkaba, star tetrahedron, the vehicle of light. Alright. It says the Merkaba is a tool for personal spiritual evolution, raising the frequency of the human body to access source energy, the energy that underlies all creation. It is an ancient symbol, and its name is derived from the Hebrew word Merkava, meaning chariot. In the Old Testament, it was the vehicle through which the throne of God could be reached. And this is how Enoch was taken up, through this vehicle of light, man. But you see how he had to change. He was seen as perfect, just like Noah, right? He was changed to get here. He wasn't flying in no hunk of metal. It says today, the Merkaba is used to restructure the human energy body so that a higher frequency can flow through it, but it has always been seen as enhancing the flow of chi, which is the life force. Traditionally, the Merkaba is used for protection and cell regeneration, symbolizing fusion, unity, and perfect harmony. It unites the right and left hemispheres of the brain, stimulating the pineal gland, which is linked to the third eye or the inner eye at the material level. And I can't see what that says. I don't know what that word is, but it says I don't know. It says a balanced mind and peaceful life. It assists in manifestation of love and all. I can't see that part, right? The Merkaba is a regular 3-dimensional polygon constructed from 8. I can't see that part. But you basically see what's going on. And this is what we be talking about. Alright, and you see how it takes form over the body. Alright, and this is how we get these things activated, man. You want to get rid of these EMFs. You want to knock off these electrical charges that the technology is using to damage you and to hijack you. You have to heighten your frequency, your vibration to activate this light vehicle. And the tribe has just what you need to do so. Special ahab to Hawaii and New York. Alright. So as you can see, this is that tree again, which is also the body. Alright. And this is how you activate this light vehicle. It says the meridians and the 5 basic elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. And you see how the ether is connected to the brain, the lungs is connected to the air, the intestines is connected to the fire, the kidneys is connected to the water, and the heart is connected to earth. All of this is real deal powwow within you. It's just chilling there, waiting to be activated by you, my nigga. The pineal gland, a terrible thing to waste. Alright? Getting that ultraviolet light, processing pineal gland and converting that into energy that will manifest your intent. It's a battery, my nigga. It's a battery. The sun is a battery. It's a giant crystal battery. Hydrogen, water. The sun is made up of water. Not no ball of fire. It's water. The sun is water, just like the ether. It says the sun is contained of like 90% hydrogen. We're talking water, man. Water. So ahab to the real ones. Again, I hope that you guys appreciated this presentation as we introduce the Etherians, the Aboriginal Indians of America, the first land out of the ethereal waters, from the primordial chaos that is the rarefied gas. Again, special ahab to Hawaii and New York. Ahab to the loved ones that's out there right now. I hope you know who you are. I hope you're watching this. This was for you. Thanks for charging me up so that I can go ahead and charge the tribe up. Your inspiration is my motivation, and my motivation hopefully can supply some inspiration right back on to you. Tawada. For everybody doing their part. We got some work to do. We got some crystals to ship out, man. We back getting busy again. Hawa Hawa. All praises due to D. You know what I'm saying? That is Aman. That is Abba. That is Framer and Shaper. It's a lovely flow right now, man. And I'm just so happy to be in the moment. I'm so happy to be building with y'all. Keep in mind, if you thinking UFOs is a hunk of metal, you falling for the okie doke. So we're only talking vehicles of light. Decahedron. Alright, tetrahedron. Stars of light, vehicles of light. That is Dawid. Ahab to the tribe. Peace, peace.